Good morning. It is Tuesday, May the 3rd. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. Now, Barbadian consumers at all areas are bracing for price increases of meat and other products, really price increases across the board. It comes in line as the price of feed from Pinnacle Feeds Limited is set to increase today. That approximately 8% price hike will be passed on to consumers in the days ahead. That's what is expected. So what are farmers saying about these increases, and what will their response be? Well, to answer these questions, I have the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, joining me live here on the Morning Report. James, good to have you on.
Good morning.
Let's talk about what is happening. Of course, the announcement was made over the weekend from Pinnacle Feeds. Over the past 2 days, you have been speaking to your membership and, of course, farmers in general. What is the feedback from them?
Well, certainly the increase in itself is very challenging. And of course, it is not something that we would want at this time, but apparently, bearing in mind what's happening in international market, this is what it is. So it's something that we have to work with and try to see how we can structure the operations, adjust operations in order to mitigate the impact of the increases.
So some adjustments obviously will have to be made. Those adjustments will be passed on to consumers. It's an 8% hike. What are you seeing? What kind of adjustments are they thinking of at this time? Because they knew the price of feed, what it was before the announcement over the weekend. They know what the price will be now that there's a roughly 8% markup.
But certainly, we will have to look to ensure that, for instance, things like how we operate, being more efficient in the use of feed, certain things, of course, like, for instance, the whole question of trying to ensure that, we pay attention to the performance of the animals, make sure they're not wasted, cut out as much wastage as possible. All of these things are things that will have to operate in combination with it. Of course, one of the things, too, that we will have to do is to look to ensure that, for instance, we don't have, in terms of the environment, negatively impacted on the growth of the chickens, because that would complicate things, or animals, pigs, or whatever. So, in other words, there are things in terms of the management of the enterprise that you would have to do in order to ensure that you don't have a situation where the operation or the growth of the animal is impacted unnecessarily. In other words, it must be a very efficient converter of energy at the same time.
Do you expect that the increases will not only be for meat but across the board? I've been hearing some people heading to the supermarket over the weekend talking about their bills going up already. Are we expected to see the price of not only meat but vegetables and other produce as well go up?
But the thing is that in terms of vegetables, that's a different thing. Already they've had increases in terms of inputs, and because of the supply issues, the shipping problems, or whatever, you're getting different prices coming from different persons. So it is not something straightforward. But I would want to note, though, that in a sense there will be that graduated increase, because right now there are chickens that are going to be slaughtered, say, that this week, which basically would not have been fed on the new increased price of feed. So the impact will not really be felt fully right through. It will just take a time for that. When that new feed starts to go in, it will, however, come in a matter of weeks. That you have to look and see, what do they need to adjust in order to ensure that they can stay afloat.
You mentioned importation a short while ago. Any concerns on that end? Because I know the BAS does have issues from time to time with certain products being produced here but still being imported. Any concerns that you're seeing on the market?
Well, of course, there are always concerns when it comes to importation, and what we get sometimes is a panic reaction, where, especially in these circumstances, where, because of the fact that, one, generally the world is experiencing an increase in the supply for commodities, there will be persons locally who will want to suggest somehow that the product can be imported even cheaper. But when you look at it, this is not a trend that is applicable to Barbados alone. Throughout the region, of course, they're seeing increased prices. And our fear is that in terms of a panic reaction, we may have big persons, even government, issuing licenses to these importers for the importation of certain commodities. The other point I wish to make is that, especially when it comes to certain products, we need, I think that it needs to be great collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade and Commerce to try to ensure that we don't have a situation where import permits are issued where they should not be issued. And that's one of our great concerns. And of course, we expect that the BADMC will continue to play a role in terms of defending the industry and making sure that, unwarranted imports do not come into this country.
James, it's always good to have you on to get your perspective on what is happening. We'll watch and see what these prices will be probably in a week's time on the shelves. But until next time, you stay safe.
Thank you, and you also too.
Thank you very much. James Paul, the CEO of the Barbados Agricultural Society. Now, another big news today, media workers in Barbados are facing a new and serious obstacle, which is threatening the future of the media professionals here and really around the world. The threat is cyber-based, and the Association of Caribbean Media Workers has taken the lead in fighting against it. Incidentally, the theme for World Press Freedom Day today is Journalism Under Digital Siege. Now, joining the morning report to examine the ability of media workers to fight for their survival is the General Secretary of the Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers, BARJAM, Emmanuel Joseph. He's also the first Vice President of the Association of Caribbean Media Workers. Good to have you on, Emmanuel. Morning to you.
Good morning to you and to all our viewers.
So we're under digital siege.
Yes. Right.
That's
so
the
you
theme
said
for
it.
today.
So I regret to say that this year's World Press Freedom Day theme, Journalism Under Digital Siege, is real for the news media in Barbados. There is an insidious enemy that is becoming increasingly evident in our midst, which threatens the very existence of the journalistic profession in particular. And I'm talking about the cybersecurity threat that is spreading its tentacles across the region. Now, right now, we in Barbados face the same danger and vulnerability as some of our Caribbean media colleagues who have become targets of certain entities that are apparently abusing spyware capable of accessing the communication channels of journalists and can also track down the sources of journalists. Now, this is a scary situation when one considers that being able to protect the confidentiality of sources is the lifeline of journalists, and any likelihood of infiltrating or penetrating those sources to expose them strikes at the very heart of our information gathering process. Now, in fact, as first vice president of the ACM, I have been made to understand that several countries have already enacted legislation to intercept or access communication under the guise of fighting cybercrime. So this is seeking to suppress press freedom and the free flow of information in situations where certain interest groups or influential individuals fear their wrongdoings or the wrongdoings, sorry, of entities in which they have a vested interest in Barbados has been hacked. Now, has been exposed. I'm sorry. So, furthermore, I would say that I have evidence that the email account of a certain journalist in Barbados has been hacked, not for the first time.
Wow.
Now, with the ability of any Tom, Dick, and Harry who can easily get the hands on the various types of spyware in order to track down journalists and their sources, I am making a call to the government of Barbados to take all necessary steps to help protect our media workers from unwarranted intrusions in the execution of their duties as they try to keep our precious democratic process alive and well. And to the media owners and operators, my appeal is for you to be extra vigilant and supportive of your media personnel by installing all the necessary measures which can protect with protective mechanisms that are available that can give an added layer of comfort and security to them, including preventing, detecting, and blocking intrusions to their privacy and ultimately their software and hardware infrastructure. Now, I can say that the Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers and the ACM are very concerned about any threat to their members and the profession in any form. And because of the broad reach of the umbrella ACM, we have placed this cybersecurity threat high on our agenda and will be working with state and non-state actors and our international affiliates to try to address this challenge that has placed journalism under digital siege.
As you should. Those plans should be high on the agenda to protect our local journalists. How concerned are you about general press freedom here in Barbados?
Now, I know we have limited time, so there's a key point. There's another key point I want to make in connection with that. That once again, we are calling on the government of Barbados to intensify its efforts at ensuring that the 2018 Manifesto pledge of enacting freedom of information legislation is moved from the talk stage to the action stage. And and if you care about democracy and integrity in public life, then the continued delay in introducing this legislation should prick your conscience hard enough that much greater push is made to get the measure implemented as part of boosting the democratic process. Now, I would, however, urge that if and when that law comes into being, that it is devoid of unnecessary provisions that can frustrate the very purpose of freedom of information. And what am I talking about? I've heard of complaints from colleagues across the Caribbean where similar legislation gives, where similar legislation have been enacted, that there are too many instances under the banner of the freedom of information where you have prohibitions, a lot of exceptions. Now, you're saying you have freedom and the right to access information, but then there are these exceptions, so many of them that they become unwieldy. So there is really like counterproductive. And
Yeah.
that is one of the things that I would like to see happen.
Understood, Emmanuel. We really do understand the challenges that we do face as media professionals. I'm wishing you all the best for today as you and our membership really enjoys, hopefully, some press freedom. But looking at this title, Journalism Under Digital Siege, that's a serious theme and a matter which really needs to be addressed. Of course, we will share some of the activities as we go through this morning and later on today. But have a good day, Emmanuel. All the best and be safe until next time we chat.
Thank you. Thank you, and same to you.
Appreciate your time, Emmanuel Joseph. He is the president of Barjam. We'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll look at what is happening with the local and regional COVID-19 scene. And of course, we'll check in with the war in Ukraine to give you the latest update there. The death toll from COVID-19 here in Barbados has increased to 398 after 3 elderly people succumbed to the viral illness on Sunday, May 1st. The deceased are all males, ages 74, 92, and 93. The 74-year-old was vaccinated, while the others were unvaccinated. Meanwhile, 344 people tested positive. That's 148 males and 196 females. And that's new COVID-19 cases out of 1,013 tests carried out on Monday. These cases comprise 268 people who are 18 years and older. The number of people in isolation facilities was 116, while 4,134 people were in home isolation. Let's look at the war in Ukraine now. The United Nations put the civilian death toll at 3,153, and that's since the start of Russia's war in Ukraine, and it warns that the true figure is likely much higher. This as the evacuation of Ukrainians from the city of Mariupol has started.
Crawling out of the rubble of Mariupol's Azovstal steel plant and finally on their way to safety. These people have been sheltering in bunkers and tunnels underneath the complex as it came under continuous bombardment by Russian forces. We've been waiting here for 2 months. The evacuation was part of what the United Nations called a safe passage operation during a temporary ceasefire agreed by Russia and Ukraine.
The soldiers came and escorted the first 11 people out. Those who were seriously ill, had asthma or needed insulin, and also 3 of us randomly. More than 40 people, including little children, are left there.
Up to 1,000 civilians and 2,000 Ukrainian fighters are believed to have ended up inside the plant, surrounded by Russian forces, in the last Ukrainian-held territory in the port city. People who were evacuated spoke of the terror they experienced and of having to live in darkness for more than 60 days.
When the shells started landing at Azovstal, I thought my heart would stop and I would not survive it.
A Ukrainian commander still in the bunker says there's not enough water and the air smells of decomposing bodies.
I hope the evacuations will continue. I hope our government and the third party, the UN mission, the Red Cross, will all try to evacuate all civilians, not only from the plant, but from Mariupol in general. I also hope to evacuate all the injured and killed, to evacuate all soldiers who are here now.
For those now free, relief, but also grief for who and what they may have lost.
There is no house anymore. Of course there isn't. All the time we spent in the bunker, they were bombing.
Mariupol authorities say 100,000 people remain in what's left of the city, with hundreds more below ground at the steelworks, a factory that's become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance.
Well, we'll continue to watch what is happening there, keep you updated right here on the Morning Report as well. So many stories we have to shed light on as we really watch what is going on internationally. Of course, COVID-19 continuing to feature in our news. The number of cases in Barbados continuing to fluctuate. We need to get more people here on the ground vaccinated as soon as possible to give them the best fighting chance against COVID-19 and against succumbing to the viral illness. The death toll, close to 400, just too short of 400. Please, let's do our best as a nation to avoid it reaching there. Let's now go over to Wendy Burt, who's back with us on Morning Barbados to see what she has for you on the Tuesday edition. Remember, it's coming off the heels of May Day celebrations. Wendy?
Yes, good morning to you, Shane. Well, we aren't celebrating today, but what we are looking at is how we can narrow the gaps in terms of asthma care. Today happens to be World Asthma Day, and we're going to have some experts from the QEH in with us this morning to tell us about that dilemma there. It also happens to be the Nutrition Month. Yes, it's National Nutrition Month, and as you would have heard, we're very concerned about our little ones and the state of obesity. In fact, NCDs as a whole, we're concerned about. So we'll be having Mr. Brian Payne along and Dr. Arthur Phillips to tell us about how we can better use food to have healthier bodies. So details of these stories and more ahead, Shane.
Thank you, Wendy. Looking forward to seeing you in a few minutes' time. Operation Reset attracted hundreds to the Botanical Gardens, National Botanical Gardens, for what was a great May Day. We'll tell you more about it on the other side of this break. Operation Reset attracted thousands of Barbadians to the National Botanical Gardens yesterday for the Barbados Workers Union May Day celebrations. It saw workers from all walks of life coming together, with one high point being the planting of a mahogany tree, which symbolized the bond and strong working relationship between the union movement and government. We hear more from Wendy Burke.
A tree planting ceremony was one of the highlights this afternoon, and President General Sean Knight said the Workers' Day was something they championed for 80 years.
We see it as our duty to maintain that standard that we developed over the last 80 years and pursue excellence for workers across this country for the next 80. So this is a testament to our celebration of Workers' Day, to our celebration of everything that we do and the partnership we have with the people of Barbados through the government of Barbados.
General Secretary Tony Moore said the tree being planted was not a one-off attempt at greening.
For years we have been at the vanguard, although we don't blow our trumpet as loudly as we ought to. We have contributed shade houses to a number of schools. We will have our own tree planting exercise at the Barbados Workers Union next Thursday. It should have been done on Friday, where we invite schools from the catchment area to come and engage in an exercise where we will be planting about 24 trees at the western side of the auditorium.
The Prime Minister, who was ably assisted by 9-year-old Atira McAllister, congratulated the union on its dedication to the workers' cause and spoke of the significance of the tree and future plans for the gardens.
I am particularly proud because, in a very real sense, apart from government, we know what it is to come from the same roots, by the same people, out of the same tribulations. And the world is not an easy place now, but just as those who went before were able to rise above and to take on the challenges of the time and to prepare a way for us, I believe that we can do so collectively to prepare a way for these kids who joined us in the planting of these trees. It has taken us 2 years, 3 years just to clean up and get here, and you're now going to see actual physical structures going in to support us, the amphitheater, so that the next time we are here, hopefully a year from now, we will have an amphitheater that is purpose-built and made for people to have events. There will be different types of gardens for different types of interests in people.
The crowd on hand made the most of the picnic-like atmosphere and the serene surroundings, while enjoying the culinary delicacies and the cultural performances by some of the island's top calypsonians and DJs. The little ones frolicked on the jumping tents and tackled the wall climber and took delight in the balloon craft. Some even posed for our cameraman, Wendy Burke, CBC News.
Looked like a good time there at the National Botanical Gardens. Further afield, Apple faces a possible hefty fine and may have to open its mobile payment system to competitors. This after European Union antitrust regulators charged the iPhone maker with restricting rivals' access to its technology use for mobile wallets.
The European competition regulator found the move resulted in less choices for consumers and hampered innovation since app developers were unwilling to create online wallets. Apple can respond to the accusations before a final ruling. If the company is found in violation, it could be fined and forced to open Apple Pay technology to rivals.
In morning sporting news, Jonathan Jones' stellar start to the track and field season continued over the weekend after he won the 400-meter final at the Louisiana State University Invitational in Baton Rouge. The 23-year-old Barbadian who attends the University of Texas clocked a season's best 44.79 seconds to win the event. That time is well within the World Athletics Championships qualifying standard of 44.90 seconds, and pending BOA ratification, it secures him a spot at the meet, which is set for July 15th to 24th at Eugene in Oregon, the USA. That's sports time. Now to look at the weather. It's nice and cool on the outside. That's because we've had some early morning showers. 24.2 degrees Celsius is what we're seeing right now. It's partly cloudy and slightly hazy. The relative humidity is up to 90%. Yes, so precipitation definitely in the atmosphere. The barometric pressure is 1050 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at 19 kilometers per hour. We'll see a low tide this morning at 22 minutes after 11. There will be a high tide in the late afternoon at 5 minutes to 6. And there will be another low tide, but that's later on tonight at 4 minutes to 11. Those seas are smooth to moderate in open water. Swells are peaking at 2 meters, but I expect them to increase. Today we will see a few early morning showers, at least that's what we're experiencing right now as we speak, and then it will become partly sunny. And tonight it will be partly cloudy with a few brief isolated light showers. And that's it for the Tuesday, May 3rd edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'm Shane Seeley. I'll see you at 7 with headline news. Up next is Wendy Burke with Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Hello and good morning, and a terrific Tuesday to you. Well, I'm back with you, at least for a little bit. Let me first off say to my colleagues in the media, happy World Press Freedom Day. We know what the fight is like. Well, today is also World Asthma Day, and apparently there have been some gaps in terms of the care of asthma patients, and we're looking at how we can close that gap, because that is the theme for the 2022 World Asthma Day, closing gaps in asthma care. And to help us this morning, we have Dr. Angela Jennings, the head of pediatrics at the QEH, and also Dr. Dawn Allen, who is the head of the respiratory unit, also at the QEH. Good morning to you, ladies. It seems as though you might be muted there, Dawn. Okay, good. Good morning to you. Now, World Asthma Day, we've been celebrating it since 1993, but we are now at a stage where we're finding more than, say, 3 in every 10 Bajans will say to you, well, yes, I have asthma. Not all are born with it. some pick it up along the way. Let's look at those trends and how our population is trending upward in terms of actually having the illness. I'll throw to you first, Dr. Jennings.
Hi, good morning, and Mornin Barbados. It's really a pleasure to be here to speak on asthma. And asthma is truly a condition that begins in childhood. It's a chronic inflammatory condition of the airways. And in the last couple of years, if you look from 1970, specifically looking at Barbados, the prevalence of asthma at that time was about 1%. Currently, we have a prevalence of asthma in childhood of about 20%. So there's been a significant increase in asthma in childhood. And then this obviously extends into the adult population as well.
Okay, and what have you been seeing in our adult population, Dr. Aline, as head of the unit?
Right. So one of the things that we've seen is that there are lots of adults who are actually being diagnosed for the first time as adults. So it might be surprising because a lot of people believe that if you have asthma, you grow out of it. But part of our challenge is that people don't grow out of asthma. What happens is that they often will have a period where it's relatively quiescent. They don't have any exacerbations, they feel relatively well, or they get used to living with their symptoms. And then as they get older, something triggers it and they represent. And then we also have the population of people who are diagnosed for the first time. So we are really dealing with two, almost, if I could simplify it, two subsets. Those who've had asthma all their life, and then those either because of occupational sensitization or other factors develop asthma later on, especially as they get older.
Okay. Now let's look at what we're grappling with now. COVID-19 is upon us. A lot of the symptoms of COVID-19 are also symptoms of asthma. How has it been for you in that respiratory unit, Dr. Aline, being able to deal with the pandemic and knowing, what is really a major asthma attack versus just someone presenting with some of the COVID-19 symptoms?
Right. So that's an interesting question. The issue with asthma is that sometimes it takes a long time to come to the diagnosis because people may have a cough that doesn't go away after a period which is extended, usually more than 10 days. Now, with COVID, people often will be asymptomatic, but COVID may actually lead to deterioration of asthma control. The other thing is that the symptoms that a patient presents with COVID may very well overlap with those experienced by those who are having a worsening of asthma symptoms. So for us, in the respiratory unit, generally, if patients are coming for procedures, we will ask them to do a COVID test prior to presenting for the procedure. As far as asthma diagnostics, we typically will take a history from the patient, looking for things like a cough that doesn't go away, breathlessness or shortness of breath on exertion, chest tightness, especially with exercise, a chronic cough primarily at night, and of course, wheezing. So those are the types of things that we would want to try to elicit from the patient. And then we would use testing, primarily pulmonary function tests, which are actually provided by the respiratory unit to confirm the diagnosis of asthma. So those are the steps that we take.
Okay. Dr. Jennings, let's look now at these actual gaps and how the pediatric unit has been looking to deal with them, because it's all about access to the diagnosis, access if you're from a different socioeconomic or ethnic background. What has been the case presenting at the QEH in terms of people being able to access that care before they become critical and end up in Dr. Aline's hands?
Well, I think we in Barbados are blessed. We have a public health system and everyone has access to health care. Looking at the gaps that are there are gaps in the education of patients, empowering of patients so that they are aware of their condition, so that they know what to do when they're having an attack, what the signs are for an asthma attack. There are gaps in recognizing asthma as a chronic non-communicable disease. We talk a lot about diabetes, we talk about hypertension, but asthma is right up there with them. And In addition to that, there are gaps in terms of education of the healthcare providers. So when we speak of healthcare providers, we're not just speaking of the doctors, we're talking about the nurses, the pharmacists, all those persons who are involved in care of patients with asthma. So the purpose right now really is to try to close those gaps with what we're doing here, public education. When we see our asthmatic patients, their children and their parents, constant education. We do have a pediatric asthma clinic at the hospital where we see patients who have asthma, and it's constant education of the patients so they recognize the signs and symptoms of their disease. The parents are educated about asthma as well, and we follow up those patients. And within the pediatric asthma clinic, we have over 200 children. Now, that doesn't reflect all the children in the country because patients are also followed up with private pediatricians, private general practitioners. So it really is about that entire conversation. And I always say it takes a village to manage asthma.
Okay. Now, I'm glad you said it takes a village to manage it, but also in that village, there are so many hazards which our children and adults encounter on a day-to-day basis. For me personally, as an asthma sufferer, the mask of COVID has helped me considerably because I no longer smell when people are burning refuse in the neighborhood or there's an animal pen or, those things are inhibited somewhat. But you still have situations where things like the silk cotton tree, which is now flowering, and a number of other trees are creating issues for people. Now, is that education drive, or has that education drive taken off sufficiently, say within our primary schools, to be able to help these children know when something is being triggered? Dr. Ali?
Well, I was interested in getting pediatric questions. Oh, not that you go the wide ball at me. What I'm going to say is that as far as education is concerned, it's ongoing. And one of the reasons that GINA, which is a global initiative for asthma, actually decided to have a World Asthma Day is really to heighten awareness. The reason why we are here is actually to help with the global push in terms of heightening awareness. And we are hopeful that in the primary schools, that we can spread the message. Of course, with the Zoom school, Google Meet school, etc., that's been happening over the last 2 years, the reach would be a little different. The Asthma Association of Barbados has had competitions involving school-age children to try to get them interested. But of course, we have to continue to reach people wherever they are. So in the polyclinics, in the private offices, via social media, and of course, Mornin Barbados is doing a great job in terms of helping us spread the message. So I think there's a lot more that can be done within the primary school arena, but we have to start somewhere, and I think here is a good place to launch that platform.
Okay, back to you now, Dr. Jennings. You all are going to be having an event at the Sky Mall, right? And it's a membership drive, and free spacing devices are being given. Will most people understand what a spacer is, and do most of them have access to these additional devices that you use in asthma care?
Right, brilliant. So as you rightly said, today we at the Sky Mall, there will be the Asthma Association there, and they will be giving free spacers. Now the spacers are the tube-like structures that allow the patient to effectively use the inhaler, because the management of asthma really is with inhalers, and these inhalers are medication that is inhaled into the lungs. And the spacer just allows you to deliver that medication in the most efficient way. Most patients with asthma should have spacers, and this just allows us to encourage and ensure that as many persons as possible have the spacers, and there will be education on how to use the spacers, because it's not just about having the spacer. What is important is how that spacer is used, and for the patient to understand when and where and how to use the spacer.
Okay, now in terms of the actual care and being able to walk around with something other than the inhaler, because the inhaler is about this big, so, and then there are the circular flatter ones that might be a little easier to carry. But when you talk about all these additional things now, has it become any easier for us in terms of the devices and the equipment? Are we down to a pocket-sized nebulizer as yet?
Yes.
We are, Dr. Ali?
Yeah. There. So I have a inhaler here and a spacer, just for those who don't know. And our reality is that there are pocket nebulizers which are battery powered, or you can plug it into your lighter if necessary. So the things that we are using have become a lot more portable, and they're readily accessible as well. The cost of these items have also fallen over time.
Okay.
In terms of bridging the gap, if I could just sort of make a plug, one of the things that Gina does is actually educate not only the physicians, but also, of course, as Dr. Jennings said, the general public. And one of the big moves, and I think that that's a huge gap, bridging of the gap event, which I would remiss of me to not mention it, is the fact that we are now moving away from just using the blue inhalers, either Ventolin or Veritech or what have you, as a rescue in the event of asthma event or asthma attack. It's now recommended that in the event of an asthma attack, what we want to do is to combine the use of the rescue inhaler, which is typically a blue inhaler, with either a brown inhaler, an orange inhaler, but basically one of these steroid-based inhalers, because asthma is recognized to not only be a condition which affects the airways, causing that to narrow, but it also is associated with inflammation in the airways. So I just make sure that everyone knows that that is a major change that has occurred in 2021.
So therefore it means some of us might have to go back to our doctors and get that prescription rechecked.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, Dr. Jennings, tell us quickly about the Zoom meeting that we're having before we go.
Right. So the date itself hasn't been determined as yet, but the purpose of this really is to reach out to the patients who currently have asthma and anyone who's interested, as our mandate really is education, because without education, knowledge is power. And with the education of the patients with asthma, those without, so that they can, sometimes help other persons to say, hey, maybe your symptoms are suggestive of asthma and you should seek medical attention. So this is going to be on a Zoom platform, and it will be arranged through the Asthma Association. Details will follow in terms of that, but it really is going to be education. We'll have a situation where patients can ask questions, and we'll be there to provide as much answers as we can. But in addition to that, we always recommend that patients follow up with their primary care physician. If you have asthma, you have not been to your primary care physician for a long time, now is the time to make contact.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Angela Jennings, Head of Pediatrics at the QEH, and Dr. Dawn Allen, Head of the Respiratory Unit there. Ladies, happy World Asthma Day.
Thank you.
Happy World Pet Freedom Day to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Have a great morning. Bye. When we come back, we will be talking National Nutrition Day.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And we're back. Now, it's all about good nutrition without boundaries. That's the theme for this year's National Nutrition Month. And with me, I have Mr. Brian Payne, who's the Assistant Nutrition Officer with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and Dr. Arthur Phillips, who's the Senior Medical Officer of Health responsible for NCDs. Now, the National Nutrition Center, in collaboration with other public service nutrition professionals, will be doing a lot during this month. During the period, the professionals and partners will be focusing on several government and non-governmental agencies to do initiatives which look at the role of good nutrition and healthy lifestyles in optimizing your care as an individual. Good morning to you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Not a problem. We're happy to have you because you're here to keep us healthier. Let's get straight to it. Nutrition. What is it really all about? Because people assume as long as your body's nourished and your tummy's full, you've taken care of yourself. But that's not the case, is it? Straight to you, Dr. Phillips.
Yes. Nutrition is key to our ability to survive. We have to take in so that we can build and maintain function. I would like Mr. Payne to lead on this as he is the expert in this area.
Yes, you go right ahead, Brian Payne.
Hi, good morning again. I think good nutrition is more about dietary variety. I hope we're long past the days where, as Barbadians would say, we're looking to have to fill our bellies. It's all about the quality of our diet, and what that basically means is eating a wide variety of foods. I think the challenge in Barbados, as the numbers or the statistics really say, is that we consume excess amounts of carbohydrates, lots of high sugar foods, high fat foods, high sodium foods, and we're sorely lacking in terms of fruit and vegetable consumption and other high fiber options. So the focus generally is the quality of the diet, not necessarily the quantity of food that we consume.
Okay, now I'm glad you spoke to quality of food. You mentioned some different food groups there and so on, but there are actually people who have allergies to those foods, Dr. Phillips, that from time to time, the lactose intolerant people, we say milk does a body good. But there's so many things that in foods can still harm us, not just the sodium, the fat, and the sugar, but the food of itself as well, Dr. Phillips. So if, as an individual, you're presented with these constraints, what are your options?
Okay, thanks so much for that. I think it's very important for people to know that there are lots of options. So certainly we do understand that people who may have allergies may have restricted options, but even in the context of allergies, for the vast majority of persons, there are many options in terms of how they can maintain good nutrition and do it in an affordable, sustainable way, using foods that they actually enjoy eating. And that's one of the reasons why our nutrition professionals are so important, because they can partner with us to look at what is available, what's in season, what are special dietary requirements based on allergies, based on disease risk or actual level of disease control, and they can work with us to advise us and to coach us and to support us. So fear not, even for those with allergies, there is a path to good nutrition.
Okay. Mr. Payne, in terms of the whole good nutrition of our people and the prevention of NCDs, one of the groups you've been working on is that of our child population, or primary schoolers or secondary school teenagers, etc., with the Barbados School Nutrition Policy. What are some of the main things that it seeks to heighten, and how is it gearing to get both parents and, say, vendors on board with this policy?
It's a very big and complex question. I'll try to do my best. The Barbados School Nutrition Policy is actually a comprehensive framework which we actually conceptualize and develop to actually guide school administrators in terms of how best to improve the school food environment. I think the policy was initially conceptualized based on the fact that there's some challenges within the school food environment, whether it be marketing of unhealthy foods to children, whether it be lack of physical activity, or the lack of nutrition-based education within the school curricula. So there are a number of factors which affected the policy's development. And the idea is that the policy is more so educating, and the policy was developed using a wide variety of stakeholders who actually came together, of course virtually, who came together, and we chose the best parts, or we chose the most essential issues which surrounded the school food environment. So the policy is more so of a guide to teach or to direct administrators.
And do you see, once discussed and implemented, it having a significant change on the way we look at what we eat and how we eat?
Most definitely. Again, we have started the implementation process in terms of working with let's say the school meals department, for instance. And the key thing here is to continually improve the offerings that they provide. Vendor training is also very important. And of course, working with the teachers and other education professionals is very, very critical, so that children can actually have a safer food environment. And the idea is that over time, the school food environment will increase, and children will be the healthy choice, will be the easier choice within the school setting.
Okay, we used to have things before the pandemic, like fruit day and water day, and each child had to bring to school a fruit on that day as opposed to a sugary snack or a salty snack, and they also had to drink only water and not juice. But you know, with the lockdown, they would have been home, so they would have been doing just about anything. How key do you see small measures like this, Dr. Phillips, actually helping to prevent our youthful population from ending up like our middle and more aged population is going now in terms of the NCDs?
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So before I go into the question itself, just want to make the point that our youthful population is already experiencing a significant level of excess NCD risk. Over 30% of our children are already overweight or obese. So let's start there. Every bit matters. There is no silver bullet. There is no one measure that is going to magically change the disease risk in our children and disease risk overall for our population. But each of these measures, so Brian has spoken about the school food environment, so what is actually served in schools. So that's talking about school meals, that's talking about vendors, that's talking about all that is served, whether it is fundraisers, etc. That's the school food environment piece. That's important. It's key. It can't be left out. We talked about the school physical activity environment. That's important, not just in terms of competitive sports, which we tend to like, but not everybody is good at competitive sports. We need inclusive physical activity. We need regular, integrated physical activity so that we can ensure that our children are achieving at least the minimum levels of physical activity daily. Many of them are not. We need to deal with the issue of marketing of unhealthy foods. Now, I'll be more specific. Foods that are high in sugar, fat, salt, calories. We need to deal with that issue of marketing, because whereas we protect children from other areas or in other areas because they say they're not fully developed, they're not able to make decisions on their own. In terms of marketing, that's an area we really need to look at. And then, as Mr. Payne says, we're integrating nutrition education into the curriculum. So whether it be the health and family life education curriculum, whether it be the school positive behavior change program, whether it be social studies or math or whatever, there needs to be an understanding that NCDs and as a risk factor, nutrition, physical activity, etc., are key if we are going to maintain or even achieve what we seek to achieve as a nation. This is not just a health issue. This is an issue that threatens the development of Barbados because we're talking about significant numbers of individuals who die early, significant numbers of individuals who have to take excess sick leave because of their situation. So every small measure counts, it's important, and that's what we're pushing for.
Okay, if I can come back to you now, Mr. Payne, on the whole issue of the theme, good nutrition without boundaries. We're still in pandemic mode. People have lost jobs. Let's not fluff it up. People's pockets are suffering. The cost of food is rising. How can we tell a mother of four with a minimum wage job that she should be feeding her child without boundaries when the boundary line is already there in terms of what her pocket can purchase in a supermarket?
I think that's a very important point you made, or important question you asked, really. And as I often tell people, the key thing here as it relates to healthy eating or eating better, quote unquote, it really comes down to planning. And of course, having an idea in terms of what you want to prepare on a particular day or over a particular week. It really comes down to, because if a person were to buy foods from the typical village shop or village store, these foods may be more expensive compared to purchasing it from a larger supermarket chain. So it really comes down to lots of planning and preparing. And the key thing here is if a person is not sure about how best to approach this, reach out to the nutrition professionals within the polyclinic system. Of course, we are happy to educate parents and guardians as it relates to how best to make affordable meals which are tasty and which make sense to a person's pocket. And again, the key thing here I often encourage persons to do is, as opposed to purchasing from the supermarket all the time, going to the local markets where you can actually get better prices, you know. So it really comes down to planning and preparation. And of course, where a person needs assistance, they should reach out to a professional where they can be guided accordingly.
I'm glad you mentioned that they are available in the polyclinic, because people might have thought, well, I can't really afford a dietitian or a nutritionist, but we're glad to know it's available through our polyclinics. Now, what's going to be going on for the rest of the month, Mr. Payne?
We have the month started from the 1st of May, and throughout the month of May, we have lots of activities going on. I think we started with a church service at Sunday at St. George Parish Church. Of course, we're doing the Mornin Barbados program today. We launched the Healthy Eating Guide for Barbados, which you can see on my bulletin board there. We launched that at the church service as well, which is a very concise document outlining a healthy pathway for eating for every Barbadian. Mm-hmm. We're going to launch the National Nutrition Center's website on the 9th of May. We're going to have there's a poster competition for primary school, a poster and essay competition for primary schools. This will culminate May 31st. We'll be providing several nutrition tips throughout the month of May through various local media.
And we're happy to help.
Of course. Another big thing we have is a collaboration with the National Council of Substance Abuse. We have this fantastic webinar planned for the 17th of May.
Okay, so we'll be sure to get those details to be able to tune in. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for joining us. Brian Payne, the Assistant Nutrition Officer, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and Dr. Arthur Phillips, who's the Senior Medical Officer responsible for NCDs. Gentlemen, happy National Nutrition Month to you both.
Thank you so much.
When Morning Barbados returns, it's time for you to get close to your phone lines, little ones, because we'll be spelling. We'll also be having our doctor on call this morning, Dr. Birchwood, so we'll hear all about some of those pediatric issues when Morning Barbados returns.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're back. And as you know, we're marking two important things this month. It's Asthma Day as well as the National Nutrition Month. And it's odd though, because sometimes some of the foods you eat may actually trigger your asthma. Some of the foods you eat may also help to control it. So at least you know you can go to the closest polyclinic to you to find out all about your needs and so on. But to tell us what has been going on in and around the country on this World Press Freedom Day is Shane Seeley. And he will be giving us an update as to all that's happening, not just World Press Freedom Day. We're hearing about price increases, the war in Ukraine, all types of things are going on. But what we have to remember in it all is that we must remain centered and focused and look toward a brighter day. And it's over to Shane now for our morning news.
Here's what's happening in your headline news for this. Well, it is Tuesday, May the 3rd, and we're hearing about news just coming into our CBC newsroom about a fire at Massey Rendezvous. Apparently, fire officials are right now on the scene battling a blaze there. It reportedly occurred in the freezer room where a freezer caught fire. We will have more details on that situation as they become available. Meanwhile, on this World Press Freedom Day, we are hearing about some email servers and even the emails of journalists here in Barbados being hacked. The issue has been raised by Emmanuel Joseph. He is the General Secretary of the Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers. And he's been speaking about the situation here on the Morning Report. Here's what he had to say on this World Press Freedom Day.
Furthermore, I would say that I have evidence that the email account of a certain journalist in Barbados has been hacked, not for the first time.
Wow.
Now, with the ability of any Tom, Dick, and Harry who can easily get the hands on the various types of spyware in order to track down journalists and their sources, I am making a call to the government of Barbados to take all necessary steps to help protect our media workers from unwarranted intrusions in the execution of their duties, as they try to keep our precious democratic process alive and well. And to the media owners and operators, my appeal is for you to be extra vigilant.
In other news this morning, the Barbados Agricultural Society is appealing to government and other stakeholders in agriculture to help prevent any panic reaction to expected price increases for meat and other products in the coming weeks. BAF Chief Executive Officer James Paul, speaking exclusively on the Morning Report, has been reacting to the news of the estimated 8% price increase for feed from Pinnacle Feeds Limited. That takes effect today.
Our fear is that in terms of a panic reaction, we may have big persons, even government, issuing licenses to these importers for the importation of certain commodities. The other point I wish to make is that you know, especially when it comes to certain products, we need, I think that it needs to be great collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade and Commerce to try to ensure.
And the BAS boss expects consumers will see price increases across the board, but any price hike should not be immediate. And looking at what you just saw, those COVID-19 numbers, the death toll from COVID-19 increased to 398 after 3 elderly people succumbed to the viral illness on Sunday, May 1st. The deceased are all males, ages 74, 92, and 93. The 74-year-old was vaccinated while the others were unvaccinated. Meanwhile, 344 people, 148 males and 196 females tested positive for COVID-19. That's out of 1,013 tests carried out on Monday. Those cases comprise 268 people who are 18 years and older. The number of people in isolation was 116, while 4,134 people were in home isolation. And that's our headline news for this Tuesday, May 3rd. I'm Shane Seeley. I'll see you at 12 with CBC Newsday. You'll get more from Wendy Burke on Morning Barbados after this break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's time for Spell It with Pediasure. Are you going to spell it in 30 seconds?
And it's time to spell it with Pediasure. Yes, it's now time for you little ones to win. Can you spell this word? Give me a call, 228-5562 or 228-5563, and spell that word. Now, Pediasure is clinically proven to help kids grow, serving up a complete and balanced nutrition for little bodies that need muscle and bone development. It also aids in brain and eye health and immune support. And as you would have been hearing, it's really important to have good nutrition. So come, spell with me this morning. Give me a call, 228-5562, 228-5563, and let's get the spelling going. We're back to school after a busy bank holiday. You all would have gone out yesterday and enjoyed lots of picnics and other things. And now it's time today to pack your lunchbox and ensure that you have some Pediasure. Good morning to you. Hello and good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, little one. How old are you?
8.
Pardon me?
8.
8 years old. Okay. Well, our word for today is asthma. Spell the word asthma with me.
Asthma.
Yes.
A-S-T-H-M-A.
Yes, you are correct indeed. That is the spelling of asthma. Now you stay on the line and give your information to our producer, and she will tell Mommy how to collect the Pediasure, which you would have won. But once the ones you've won have gone, remember to let Mommy know to go to the supermarket and pick up either your chocolate, your vanilla, or your strawberry flavored Pediasure.
That was Spell It, brought to you in association with Pediasure.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And it's time to go to the trust loans. Yes, Barbados Trust Loans. They're with us this morning. We have with us Jaricia Durant, who is a business development officer, and Nicole Ford, a consultant there. Good morning, ladies.
Morning. Good morning.
Now, it seems as though we're going to be having quite a bit happening this week in terms of pop-ups and our watch parties and talking entrepreneurship all over again. Now, let's go to you first, Jaricia, in terms of the pop-ups and what's happening during this month of May.
Well, this month of May, we are having a fair. It is the Trust Fair and Bazaar, which has been postponed, unfortunately. But we have, but not this weekend coming, the following weekend, where a range of entrepreneurs and support organizations will be coming out to showcase their businesses, products, and services they have to offer.
Okay, so where will it be?
It is at, forgot the name. It is at, Nicole, help me with the name again. The
St. James Park, sure.
St. James Park,
St. James Park,
sorry.
Okay.
From 9 till 5 p.m.
Okay, so we have quite a bit of time to get going. And Nicole, you're busy in that corner again talking entrepreneurship. What's on the topic line this week?
Well, this week we're talking about marketing, effective marketing, in fact, digital versus traditional marketing. So we're having the conversation with entrepreneurs about the types of marketing that there are that's available out there in Barbados, which kinds of marketing would be the most effective for you and for your business. We're talking about the pros and cons of the various types of marketing. So obviously there's traditional will be more like television and radio, while digital will fall under social media marketing, email, those types of things. And then we're going to be talking about whether or not small businesses can impact their visibility using digital media. We're asking, obviously, the public, and we're asking people to call in and give their opinions on what kinds of marketing has best worked for them and how they've been using it. And then we're going to be talking about influencers as well, or marketing personalities, in fact, and how they can actually also positively impact your brand. So we've got a bunch of people on as well that will be talking about marketing, and they're all stalwarts within their various industries.
Okay. Now, Jaricia, alongside the talk entrepreneurship, we usually have a watch party elsewhere. So, people can tune in early and know what's going on and have their own discussion about it, while you also showcase some products of some of your other clients. Where will the watch party be this time around?
Yes, the watch party is at Raja Bar, which is over at School Docks. You can go over there, have a drink, sit and watch the watch party with a number of our staff members, and see some entrepreneurs that we have showcasing. With you can get wine and other stuff, other products and services our entrepreneurs offer, and you get to line with Atherton and a range of other small businesses.
This next question is to both of you ladies. While we're having the talk entrepreneurship and the watch parties with the product there, how effective is that tool as a marketing tool?
Well, I guess I'll go first. It's always great to increase the visibility of a small business, no matter how you're doing it, whether or not it is word of mouth, whether it is with sampling, whether or not it is with new ways to sell your products. But one of the great ways that we do it here in Barbados is with product sampling. So the more people that can come out and try my product and have an understanding of its taste, its texture, the fine notes, especially when it's with wine, we like to talk about the palate and all these things when we're talking about wines. So if we have people experiencing the product, then we can get people buying the product, and that's what's most important.
Exactly. And for you, Jaricia, how do you find it goes for the clients?
Well, for the client, I find that, after they get the experience to showcase the product, sometimes the bars, most of the time, stock the product, especially with wine. So that gives them another place to put their product, put their services, or anything like that. Have that extra source of revenue coming in.
Okay, so the integrated marketing approach is definitely working. Now, if we can come back to you quickly here, Jaricia, in terms of the offerings, each week we hear more people are contacting your phone lines or walking in to ask a question or two. What's it been like over the last week?
It has been good. We, have a couple of applications coming in. Normally, I would say, that we do offer small business loans up to $5,000. Sometimes the process is fast or slow, but this week we did have a couple of new applications coming in.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Now, Nicole, in terms of helping people to push and to market, do you find most of them always assume that it is going to be a spend issue only? I can only brand or market if I do cards, if I do ads in the newspaper, and I don't have that wherewithal to spend right now.
Well, traditionally, we have found that entrepreneurs do think to themselves, I need to go this particular route. I see what it is that the big businesses are doing and what they've done for all of these years. And I find myself thinking that I need to compete with them in this particular way. But that's not necessarily how it is this day, in this day and age with the advent of digital marketing. I can utilize $5, for example, and capture my niche market online on Facebook or on Instagram and capture at least one new customer or two new customers with a small advertising campaign that is low budget and very versatile. And of course, our panelists this week will be able to talk about all the different kinds of things that you'll be able to do on digital marketing. So we've got Jordan English, who is an influencer and the owner of Influence Bar. We have Dario Greenwich, who is the owner of Shine Automotive. And these are big businesses that, Dario's business would have grown over an extended period of time. But Influence Bar is one of those things that literally has just popped up and it has already made a name for itself in the market with the younger group. And then we have Christina Hunt, who is the founder of Creative Edge Marketing Inc. And she'll be able to give us a perspective from a company that manages and creates campaigns out there for big and small entities. So it, again, it's going to be a very, very diverse show. We're going to have the two hosts online as well, Tony Thorne and Stephanie Chase. And they, of course, are influencers in their own right. So they'll be able to give you information on how it is that you can think outside the box to positively impact your business when your budgets are not necessarily as big as they can be. This week, we'll also be featuring some entrepreneurs. I don't know if you'd like me to tell you about them right now.
You can go right ahead.
Okay, so we have Churn Homemade Ice Cream, and that's Corey Williams. And then we also have Shea Renee Beauty Spa, and that is Renee Blendman. So we'll be featuring their business. We also talked to them about their various marketing experiences. Of course, we had Man on the Street, so we went out and we engaged with a bunch of people, all at Holders Farmers Market. Last weekend, we would have been talking to all those entrepreneurs. They go, they set up their weirs, they set up these booths, and they have these various experiences. So Atkinson would have been out and about chatting with them, asking them, what their experiences are like executing their marketing initiatives, which kinds of marketing initiatives will really work for them, and what they would suggest to Barbados.
Okay, so we'll get to find out what that is all about, I guess, in the next time we see each other. Now, in terms of the live tonight and being able to be a part of it, what's the information that we need to know to be able to get on board?
Jaricia, you want to take this one?
You go ahead.
So you could call us at 228-3275 if you're interested in communicating with us on WhatsApp. You can actually also, when you're following the show, you follow the show on our Instagram or YouTube or on our Facebook. And in doing so, you can actually communicate with us by chatting with us on the actual platform. It pops into our visibility, and then we can actually put your questions on the screen. We can showcase to everybody to see what it is that people are thinking. So it's very, very interactive. And of course, if you come down to Raja experience that was Screw Docs, then you can also interact with Atkinson. You can go live on screen as well to ask us your questions or to ask the panelists your questions as well. So there are lots of ways that you can interact this week.
Okay, so I want to thank you both, Jaricia and Nicole, for joining us this morning. They will be out today, May 3rd, 6:30 to 9:30, watch party at the Screw Dance, and the actual show goes from 7 until 8. Hope you have a great one this week, ladies.
Thank you.
And let's talk entrepreneurship. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Well, when Morning Barbados returns, it's time to talk to our doctor on the line. Yes, Dr. Birchwood will be telling us about some common adolescent issues.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And good morning again to you. If you're now joining us, you've joined at the right time because we're talking with Dr. Gillian Birchwood, the consultant pediatrician and neonatologist at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. This morning, we're going to be looking at common adolescent health concerns. Good morning to you, Dr. Birchwood.
Good morning, Wendy. How are you doing today?
I am well. I hope you are too.
Yes.
Okay, let's get straight to it. Changes in puberty. When do they start and what are they?
Yes, puberty for most parents is a time that they face with great trepidation. You know, it's not something that most parents look forward to be honest, of the changes that take place in their child's body. And you have your little girl or your little boy suddenly showing signs of growing up to be a man, and it can seem to be all too soon. But typically, the changes in puberty will start earlier in girls than they do in boys, and they can start usually from around age 8 in girls, and they can start as late as age 13, but it depends on your family. It can be a bit earlier or a bit later, depending on your family. And in boys, those changes can start as early as around years of age, and they can go all the way down to starting at around age 15 or 16 in boys. And the changes, of course, will depend on whether you're a boy or a girl. The first change in boys is not something that you can see. It's actually an increase in the size of their testicles. That's typically what happens first. And then they start to develop pubic hair and underarm hair, accompanied by that wonderful smell that parents get to know and are quite shocked by in their little children. And they also have an increase in growth. So they get a sudden growth spurt after their testicles start to increase in size, and you see that hair develop. In girls now, the first change is actually the development of breast buds. That's the first changes that you see when you get a little nodule that's underneath the breast, and sometimes be a bit painful, and parents can worry about it. And then you start seeing a growth spurt and the development of pubic hair and hair under the arms. And of course, later on, a year or two after you start seeing the changes in puberty, then girls will develop their first periods, typically. That's how it would go.
Okay. Now, is there an issue of your puberty actually taking place either too early or too late?
Yes. So if we see puberty in girls less than age 8 and in boys less than age 9, it may be a cause for concern. Sometimes genetic tendency for that will run in families, but on occasion it is actually a result of something more serious, such hormonal changes in the brain that are taking place a little soon, and there can be other factors related. So if you see early signs of puberty in your boys or girls, it's really important to seek out your doctor to be sure of what is happening. It's normal. They can do tests to see.
And then there's that thing that we all tend to see, the face of getting older, the acne, the bumps, the marks. What is there anything we can do about it?
Yes, acne can be so distressing for teenagers. It can affect their self-esteem. And at that age, you want to look good. You don't want to stand out for the wrong reasons. And so when the acne develops, which is really related to the hormonal changes that happen during puberty, then it can be quite distressing. So it's important, first of all, as parents, to take acne seriously and not to say, oh, never mind about it, because it can really affect their self-esteem. The second thing is, if it's quite mild, you can make changes yourself at home. Don't do excessive, harsh scrubs and cleansers that will strip the skin. That can actually make acne worse. If you have mild acne, you can buy a product over the counter, such as one that contains benzoyl peroxide. That's benzoyl peroxide for mild acne. And what that does is it helps the plug that causes the acne to dissolve faster, and the acne changes to resolve. If it's worse than that, you would need to go to your doctor.
Okay. Now, are there any warning signs that I need to look out for in my teenager during this time?
Yes. As your child goes through puberty, it's very important to keep a close eye on them. They're going through a lot of changes, yes, in their body, but also in their mind, and they're interacting with their peers and with the world around them. So it's really important to keep an eye out. So if you see changes in behavior, you had a child who was bubbly and interactive, and suddenly they become very withdrawn. They don't want to interact with their friends. They're staying in their bedroom all the time. They're poring over their phone. They're not interacting with you. That definitely can be a red flag. If you notice that they are sleeping longer than usual, that can also be a flag. Of course, that's hard to discern because teens seem to be sleeping all the time. Pay attention to the teen who never wants to get out of bed. The other thing is changes in appetite. And if you notice that your teen is eating much more or eating a lot less, especially if there are changes in weight associated with that, that can be a red flag, and you need to pay attention to that. Finally, you need to look out for things, evidence of self, which is increasing and very, very concerned here in Barbados. Cuts and scrapes or burns that are happening on their arms, legs, and sometimes they will kill them with bandages and with clothing. If your teen is wearing a lot of long sleeves, or longer pants, you need to be aware that they might be concealing something. So change your child and dismiss as, or they're just being a teenager. It could be something more in some cases.
So this really is the watch period for parents with children going into adolescence. Now, you talked about the perhaps self-harming and different changes that they might do because of, how they're grappling with the emotional issues. But body positivity is also something we speak a lot about. And I find like sometimes little girls tend to be fretted a lot about when their development starts and those kinds of things, and boys as well. You joke about the fact they're getting a little bit of beard and things like that. But how can we as parents help them to successfully maneuver through that gap that they must go through toward adulthood?
Yes, you know, I think it's more challenging than ever for teens to maintain a healthy body image because of the impact of social media. It's so much space than it would have been when I dare say we were teenagers, although that seems like a million years ago. But for children going through the teenage years, they can sometimes be affected by these, negative body images. But as you would have said, what's important to remember is that they will watch you a lot. So you have to be a good role model. It's very important for you to be a role model, and your children are watching what you do. The other part of it is to get them engaged in, in things like sports and hobbies. That can be a really important way of seeing have a good body image. I don't know if I've lost you, Wendy, or if I'm still on the air.
We're not losing you today at all. You are still very much here. Now, in terms of this body positivity too, and you mentioned it earlier, that a smell comes with this change of life that they're going through, because that's basically what it is. We're just getting to the next step. But you find sometimes that girls tend to want to shower a lot more, and boys, on the other hand, seem to want to shower less.
That's very true. Someone once told me that the only reason why grown men shower is because it's socially unacceptable not to, but they never outgrow the desire not to bathe. That's what I was told on good authority. But it is a change of life that children go through, and it's hormonal. And often parents aren't quite prepared for it, particularly because it may happen as early as 6 years old. Parents are quite shocked. But yes, the changes, or it's not necessarily puberty, can happen at that age. It's important to counsel our children about good hygiene, using a wash rag to scrub under their arms, and to maintain good normal hygiene. But on the points of having a positive body image, getting children involved in hobbies, getting them involved in sports, getting them involved in healthy activities can make a huge difference to how they see themselves. And as parents, don't underestimate the impact of praising your child and telling them, oh, you look so nice in that dress, your hair looks nice, that shirt really suits you. They may seem to really brush it off, but believe you me, they are listening, and it means a lot to them when you praise them and you accept them for the way that they look. That means a lot to them.
Yes, it does. Now, in terms of the way they look, are there abnormalities, maybe, perhaps, that you should look out for? You spoke to testicular size before with boys. Now, should you find that that might seem a little too much for the child's age and size, or they complain along the way as it is happening about severe pain, whether it be numb or whether it be sharp? Should we look to get that checked immediately?
Yes, if you have a little boy or a developing teenage boy complaining of pain in their testicles, that definitely needs to be looked at. It may not be anything serious, but it could be an infection or something more significant. So yes, definitely take that seriously. Remember, they're often quite embarrassed at this age and they don't want to step forward. So when they tell you something, make sure that you pay attention. They may only mention it once because it's very embarrassing, all these changes that they're going through. So if you go to your doctor, they can tell whether or not the size of the testicles is appropriate for the age. There's actually something called a testicular rosary, like the Catholic rosary, and they have beads of different sizes that you can compare the size of the testicles to, and it will tell you whether or not it's appropriate. So it is something that your doctor will be able to tell for sure if it's appropriate, too large or too small.
What about in a girl now, if I found that one breast might be growing at a more rapid rate than the other and such like?
Sometimes with little girls, there can be some asymmetry in the early stages. We wouldn't expect a huge amount of asymmetry, but there can be asymmetry. Sometimes parents are concerned because when the breast buds come, they're quite hard. It may be on one side and not on the other, and that's quite normal. And the breast buds can be tender as well. So you may see early development being more on one side than the other, although that certainly changes as puberty progresses. So
Okay.
again, if it's something you're worried about, you can check with your doctor. Most times it's nothing to worry about, but there's no harm in checking.
Now let's look at the odors and what we need to be doing to promote that proper hygiene. How soon or what would be too early to introduce antiperspirants and so on to our children?
Yes. Well, there is a difference between deodorants and antiperspirants. So deodorants just contain perfumes that essentially mask the smell that is, being noticed under the arms. Antiperspirants now block the sweat glands and prevent perspiration in the first place. And if you look at the ingredient label, you can tell the difference. Antiperspirants contain aluminum, which blocks those sweat glands, whereas deodorants don't tend to contain agents like that. And usually the label will tell you the difference. If it says deodorant and antiperspirant as opposed to antiperspirant alone or deodorant alone. So for very young children who are having a bit of an offensive odor, make sure you clean under their arms really well. And as a parent, you might need to supervise that initially. And then when they're finished, just having a little bit of a powder under the arms may help. But definitely that won't last for long because then the smell will soon be overpowering even that. And then you can move on to just a simple deodorant, which is going to mask the smell, but will not be quite as strong as an antiperspirant. And when they get into those teen years, they will most certainly need an antiperspirant, as a deodorant alone will not be effective at preventing the smell. And it's important to pay attention to that because you don't want them to get teased at school. It's something that can stick with them for quite a while. So it may seem like a small thing, but it is important for their emotional well-being.
What about in girls in terms of when the cycle now starts and being able to manage that, especially when you might still be at primary school and it happens, because all schools aren't equipped in terms of restrooms, etc., for these young children?
That's a really excellent point. And one of the most important things that you can do to prepare your child in advance. So you don't want this happening and they don't know what's happening to their bodies, because you're right. Many young girls are having their periods when they are in primary school. So talking to them in advance about what to expect. When you start seeing those changes of puberty happening, especially if they happen early, it's quite likely that they will have their first period when they're in primary school. So you prepare them in advance emotionally, and then you prepare them by making sure that they have the sanitary napkins, etc., present with them in their school bag. Talk them through what they're going to do and what signs they would notice of their first period. Make sure that you identify a teacher that they feel comfortable with, who they can go to, who can assist them, and that they would know that they should call their parent so that they can come to the school and support them as necessary. So preparation, preparation, preparation is key, and they're less likely to be afraid if they have a plan and if they know what to expect. And you can support them in that way so it's not a traumatic experience for them.
Well, Dr. Birchwood, I am sure that you have helped a lot of parents this morning through that puberty peril, because that's how a lot of parents view it. It's like you're scared to go through this thing. Yeah. But we thank you for joining us this morning, and we know what to look out for, what to expect now, and how to better manage it. Here's a happy Tuesday to you.
Thank you. You too. Have a great day.
You as well. When Morning Barbados returns, we will be talking real estate with Sharita Odell. We'll be back in a bit. Good morning and welcome back to Morning Barbados. Time is winding down, but never too late to join us if you're now logging on. We're going to be talking with agent Sharita O'Dell this morning, and we're talking about holiday rental success, how to market your real estate successfully. Good morning to you, Sharita.
Good morning, Wendy. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Looks as though we were at the same place over the weekend. No. Were you working or did you get to enjoy bank holiday?
I rested and relaxed and I'm rejuvenated.
Great. So that means you're ready to tell us all about how we can make this holiday rental a success. Now, what are the things we need to start doing when we want to make our dwelling a holiday rental?
All right, so we can divide the whole thought process up into two categories: product offering and product marketing. Everybody has something that others want. Sometimes we often think that vacations and holidays are about luxury villas and rentals or, pie in the sky prices. Not necessarily. Somebody might enjoy being out there on a farm, milking cows, and eating tomatoes from off the fields. So when you have property, look at the possibilities. Rentals are not only reduced to those properties which are on the coastline. So that gets you to thinking, if you have a spare room, that's nice. If you live within an experience that somebody else can appreciate, maybe that's something that you can transform and customize to attract someone to put some money into your pocket.
Okay, interesting, because we tend to see things from just one narrow view and perspective. So it's good to know that we can go elsewhere. Now, what about when you want to appeal to that visitor? How easy is it for me to turn my property into a little B&B where maybe I rent them the cottage downstairs, but I still live upstairs, and maybe things like offering them local cuisine. It doesn't have to be all meals. It could be breakfast, it could be brunch. What about incorporating elements like that?
Yes. Well, first of all, location still holds firm. Even if you're not on the coastline or within a tourist community, it still has to be a place that I am not driving by and clutching my pearls. Okay, so let's start with that. It needs to be in a location that someone who is not from here can feel comfortable and safe. All right. Once we have established that, then look at what you have to offer. So as I said, let's say you live in a small house that's out in the country on a farm. Perhaps you can offer a farm to table guest house sort of experience. You come and stay in Country View Room A, and we will help you with breakfast, and you get to join us making lunch and dinner. So if that is the case, that is something that is sellable. You just have to find websites that tailor to that, and thanks to Google and any other search engine, plug that in, see websites which are, suitable to what you are offering, and put it out there. All you have to do is monitor your booking calendar. So let's say Wendy's coming from June 4th to the 17th. You block those dates out, and then you make sure you probably give yourself 2 days to turn over that room, clean it, make it nice and tidy, and ready for the next person. All of those things you can tailor on websites these days.
That's was going to be my next question to you. Where do you go to find information like that if you're not having a realtor do all of it for you? They might be helping you to put the product on the market, but in terms of the bookings and so on, where can an individual go to find software, etc., that's useful in this process?
Well, here's the beauty of it. You don't even need to get as fancy as software. There are booking engines online, a variety of them. The most popular is probably Airbnb.com. There's bookings.com, direct by owner. Just search property rentals or holiday rentals or vacation rentals in the Caribbean. See what sites pop up, and you can actually register your property. Now, keep in mind that you have to make your property look sexy. So although you have this beautiful idea, you have to make sure you take photos that are of quality. So I often recommend either come with your fancy dancy phone camera or get a professional to take photos. And the beauty of a lot of these sites is that you don't necessarily have to pay to be on them up front. They will deduct a small percentage of the total booking cost. So let's say Wendy is offering a little guest house experience at her place for her room on the ground floor. What happens is if that room works out to $500 for 8 nights, the booking engine might subtract, I'm just guessing, the booking engine might subtract 40 or $60 or $20, whatever. Once the person arrives and checks in, they automatically send the money your way electronically. For some people, they might collect it at one of the financial institutions, or it's tailored so it goes directly into your bank account.
Okay, now you spoke about making things look good. So what do we need to do? Should we be investing in more landscaping? Maybe just a quick set of paint on the outside? What should we be doing?
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So now step outside your house, turn around, and call yourself, tourist pretty. Okay? When you look at this property, do you want to go inside, or are you turning around and running for your life? If the latter, maybe we need to start off with the curb appeal. Perhaps you need to trim your hedges and debush. Invest in a coat of paint. Even something like just painting the pedestals of your veranda and your door. The basics. But make it look cute. Do I want to come and stay by you? It doesn't matter, if it is in, some neighborhood is full of built-up houses, or it doesn't matter if it is in the countryside or by the ocean. Do I want to stay by you? Do you want to stay by your own house? That's the litmus test.
Okay. Now, once you've decided, yes, we're going to stay in there, what are some of the amenities that I should ensure that I have for that holiday visitor? What should I make sure that, say, the kitchen has, the living room, the bedrooms, what should be on offer?
So remember, it doesn't have to be fancy dancy, but you advertise exactly what you're offering. So we're in the tropics. A lot of people coming to visit us can't relate to our heat. So please have a fan, AC, or at least some proper ventilation going on. In terms of actual amenities, your kitchen should have the basics like at least a microwave, a toaster oven, a stove top. You'll notice that in true little house rentals, you don't have to have a big fancy kitchen, You just have to have that little stove top, oven, probably toaster oven, electric kettle, something like that. And of course, in terms of your crockery and cutlery, you have your big saucepan, your small saucepan, same thing with the frying pans, and just basic stuff, probably 2 to 3 pieces of each. And that is how you make it all come together. Are you offering an experience? I need a TV in my life. So are you offering an experience with TV and internet? Even if persons aren't watching TV nowadays, they need the internet. So those are kind of must-haves in this era.
Okay. Now, in terms of giving them the internet, do properties, or should properties look at perhaps maybe say limiting usage, or should it always be open for how many ever visitors they have at the property at that time, etc.?
I say go with what your budget can handle. If Spruce Bruce is coming and she's only paying $50 a night, basic internet for you and no more. So based on what you are expecting from the guest in terms of coins, you put out in terms of your effort and amenities. So you can increase the amenities, you can increase the caliber if the amount of coins coming into your pocket increases too.
Okay, now let's get to the actual marketing. You mentioned that there's some free online booking platforms and so on that you can go on. Now, after you've gone, should you look to maybe perhaps say get reviews? Like say for example, you Sharita, were having some painting or treatment being done home, and you came by my holiday rental just for about 4 days or so, would it be right and ethical for me to ask you to review it as a property on one of these sites?
Once I stay in your place, yes, reviews are golden. When I travel, I usually just use basic holiday rentals, believe it or not, unless it's some far off land that I know I need to stay in a much larger property for safety's sake. But I make decisions based on reviews. I will sit down like an exam with my glasses on and my pen, and I will look through all the reviews. What did they say about your property? And the reality is some people might have bad experiences, but they might say, oh dear, we love the place, but we saw a cockroach fly through the window and we weren't ready. Okay, maybe I might emotionally be still able to cope with that. Everything else said about it was nice. That might have been a one-off occasion. So you look at reviews objectively and you make a decision on whether this place is for you or not. Reviews help in building your trust in this property.
Now, you said that we should basically give based on costings, right? In terms of the amenities, etc. There should be a match. However, if we realize that there's a frequency with which individuals are coming to rent the property, it means then that we can take on 1 or 2 enhancements with a view to raising price. How should we try to hedge that to ensure that we don't put ourselves outside of the clientele that was coming to us in the first instance?
Very good. So remember, stay focused on what is the experience you want to offer. I have driven by, let's say, Eagle Hall, Deacons, some areas that I love because, they have a nice, authentic, rich Caribbean sort of setting. And I've seen tourists walking around wondering, okay, did you pick this because it said 5 minutes from the beach? Or did you pick it? And I then realized that someone may have posted, come and have an authentic Caribbean experience and live with me, Mildred Sue. And people are picking property because of that. They don't want to necessarily stay in the run-of-the-mill tourist experience. They want to get up and walk to the supermarket along Black Rock. They want to hop in the van sometimes and head up Green Hill. Places that you would not normally see tourists. They want to experience the authenticity of the country, and the best way to do so is just immerse yourself in it. So in terms of what you're asking, even though they're coming for, yes, authentic Barbados, you still want to enhance the experience so that when they talk about the reviews, when they share their experience on the reviews, it blows people away. We went into this traditional bungalow, but we still had the opportunity to have air conditioning. And we love the fact that X, Y, and Z. So stay true to the core of what you're offering in terms of the authentic package, but nothing wrong with enhancing amenities. Who doesn't like to stay in a nice place?
Exactly. Always keep it on the top. Well, Sharita, I want to thank you for joining us this morning to tell us how to come about having holiday rental success. You have a terrific Tuesday.
You too. Take care.
Take care. Well, as you know, this is the month of May 2022, but we're still well within the season of emancipation. A number of activities have passed and more yet to come. But we will be back after the break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
And we're back. Just before we wrap up and go and wish you a terrific Tuesday, let's look into this video here of our guy, Black Rock Dave.
Tell me you're Bajan without telling me you're Bajan.
Watch Morning Barbados.
And that's exactly what you would have been doing for the last hour. I want to thank you for joining me this morning here on Morning Barbados. I'm Wendy Burke, and I'm wishing you a pleasant Tuesday.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up.